My name is Rob Maxwell. I'm an exercise physiologist and personal trainer. I'm the owner of Maxwell's fitness programs, and I've been in business since 1994. The purpose of this podcast is to get to the real deal of what really works and why some things don't work. I think you are going to enjoy this podcast today. I put a lot of work into it, did some research, found some really interesting things, and it's all about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Pain in a workout. When is it good? When is it bad? When is it ugly? Naturally, I'm going to use science to explain what's really going on in your body. So stick around. Before I get to that, though, let me thank Jonathan and Lynn Gilden of the Gilden Group at Realty Pros. They currently have over 280 five-star reviews on Zillow. These guys are the best. You know, it's a team of 14. That's a lot of people, and that's probably why they're constantly selling houses. I wish they would list my next door neighbor's house, because that house has been up for sale for 7 or 8 months now. It ain't moving. They just moved to another real estate agent. I don't know. They need the Gildens. Tried to tell the guy that. Well, I really didn't, because I haven't seen him. But if I saw him, I would definitely tell him that, because the Gilden Group is flat out the best. 386-451-2412. All right, so let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And by the way, the ugly is not really ugly. It just is. So what is the good? What is the good pain in a workout? The good pain is the burn. We had t-shirts for a while there that on the back it said, if it's burning, it's working, because that was a saying I used to say all the time. I still say it because it's true. When people would say, I don't like the burn, my legs burn, my arms burn, I don't like the burn. And I would say, the burn is your friend, or if it's burning, it's working. And you know what? If it's burning, it's working. And don't we want our resistance training to work? Isn't that why we do it? The cool thing about the burn is that we know it's working. Like, what's happening in our body is a reflection of anaerobic metabolism. So that means that the burn in the muscle is lactic acid. And the lactic acid is a byproduct of anaerobic metabolism. So if we're feeling lactic acid, we're getting anaerobic. If we're getting anaerobic, our fast twitch muscle fibers are getting exhausted. And therefore, it's working. So the good is the burn. When we feel a burn in our muscles, that is lactic acid. That means that there is a point of lactic acid accumulation, onset of blood lactic acid accumulation, or OBLA, to the point where it is really burning, and that is what is going to cause the stoppage of the repetition. How long you can hold that fatigue, which you can only hold it for so long. I will say everybody's a little different on that. Some people, as soon as they start to feel the burn a little bit, they quit, and I encourage them to work through it. And some people sit there extremely stoic, and I don't even know they're burning, and then they just at the end tell me, man, that was burning. So we're all a little bit different in our psychology and personalities with how we handle the burn, but there's definitely only so far we can go with the burn. Eventually, it is going to stop us in our tracks. So what lactic acid is the byproduct of cellular respiration when carbohydrates are being broke down. Now, in anaerobic metabolism, it's carbs that are used for fuel. In aerobic metabolism, both carbs and fat are used for fuel. So aerobic exercise is predominantly our cardiorespiratory exercise. Strength training is an anaerobic exercise. So that's what the lactic acid is, all right? It's normal. It's simply a byproduct of respiration. That's what it is. If it's burning, it's working. Now, there was a myth propagated, it's been going on forever. People still try to bring it back sometimes, but they try to claim that the muscle soreness you feel the next day or maybe even later in the day is lactic acid. And you might even hear some unqualified massage therapists, although to be honest, I don't know too many of them, because to have a massage license, you have to have a license, and they're pretty much on their game. But every once in a while you might see somebody out there that's not as qualified. Maybe they're just posing as massage therapists, who the heck knows. But they'll make these claims, I'll see it on social media, about how to get rid of some of the soreness in your muscles, you need to get rid of the lactic acid that has accumulated after the workout until the next day. Well, that is not true. When the set is over, the burn goes away. Eventually, it just circulates through your bloodstream and it's out. It does not pool, it does not stay. Lactic acid does not remain built up in your system at all. It can remain built up for a little bit when it gets into the peripheral system. So when it's in your body and floating around your bloodstream, lactic acid can cause some nausea and some lightheadedness, especially if you're deconditioned and your body isn't very good at tolerating it, which is a product of fitness. Then it can cause a little bit of ill effects like that, and we'll typically tell somebody to cool it down a little bit on the recumbent bike or something to help kind of circulate that out of the system, and then eventually sweat it out, which is what you're going to do. But it definitely doesn't remain after that. So that is a big myth. So that is not what soreness is, but I'm not going to tell you what soreness is just yet, because that's the ugly, although it's really not ugly, it just is. All right. But to wrap up lactic acid, that's the good. I want everybody to understand that when it's burning, it's working. It's a good thing. So how do you differentiate? I mean, I think most people can. I think you'd have to be really inexperienced to not know the difference between the burn in the muscle and pain in a joint. But the burn in the muscle is deep in the muscle belly. I mean, it's not going to be in the knee, it's going to be in the quad. It's not going to be in the elbow, it's going to be in the bicep. It's not going to be in the back of the elbow, it's going to be in the tricep. It's not going to be in the shoulder joint, it's going to be in the bicep or the deltoid. So the burn is in the belly of the muscle. It comes on and it stays, and it gets worse and worse until the exercise is over. That's how you know that that's lactic acid in the burn that you want. When you feel the burn, all right, I just want to encourage you as a trainer to fight through it. It's not going to hurt you. You know, typically higher reps are going to do that, because the more anaerobic we get more anaerobic with time. So we're going to get more onset of blood lactic acid accumulation longer into the set. It's never going to last longer than 90 seconds or so, because at that point we're really becoming aerobic and the load wasn't heavy enough. All right, the anaerobic window is between 30 and 90 seconds. That's typically where we're going to get the most anaerobic metabolism. So when we start feeling the burn, just tell yourself, I'm going to push through this. Now, you can rest, and of course the burn's going to go away as soon as you stop, right? It's a relief. But if we have more reps to do, like if we didn't really hit muscular failure, we just stopped before muscular failure because it was burning, well, we're not getting the complete effectiveness of the set, and we want to get all of the effectiveness. Now, we push you through that and get you to failure oftentimes, right? But all that does is kind of delay the inevitable, and it's fine. It's better than stopping. But I just encourage you to do the best you can to push through the burn, because the burn is your friend, okay? Now the bad. And this is really the only bad on our list, and that is joint pain. Honestly, I don't see a lot of joint pain in my own workouts or when I work with other people, because I know how to avoid it. And we all really should know how to avoid it. So unlike the lactic acid burn that I want you to work through, I don't want you to work through joint pain. Joint pain we work around, we don't work through. I worked with a client today who was feeling a little bit of pain in his hamstring calf area, and I said, no, and he knows this, but I said, we don't want to work through that. We want to let it rest. We don't want to stretch it, because if we stretch a muscle that's been pulled, we're actually pulling it apart further. So we don't want to do that, but we don't want to hurt it either. We don't want to flare it up, so to say. We just want it to heal, and it will. It will definitely heal. So we don't want to actually work through joint pain. We want to work around joint pain. So what that means, if we're having knee pain, yes, we want to strengthen the knee, but we strengthen the knee by trying to strengthen the quadriceps and the hamstrings around the knee. But if it's an exercise that actually exasperates the knee, we don't want to do it. We want to find other ways to do it. So for example, and then I'll get back to explaining how we know what joint pain is. But for example, let's say somebody is doing leg extensions, which is a phenomenal quad exercise, one of my all-time favorites. But every once in a while, we'll run into a situation where at that moment, it's bothering the knee joint. So I'll say, you know what? Let's not do this. Let's do a wall sit instead. So I'll have them try to do a wall sit where they're actually not bending their knee at all. They're holding their knee in a stationary position, hitting their quads to hopefully not aggravate the joint. So we are training around a joint issue to strengthen the joint, okay? So how do we know the difference? Well, again, I think it's pretty obvious when it's a burn in the muscle versus joint pain. But first, understand a little bit about what joint pain is. So joint articulations are when two bones come together. That's what a joint articulation is. So when the humerus, which is the upper arm bone, meets the radius and ulna, that's going to form the elbow joint. When the tibia and fibula come in and meet the patella at the kneecap, which works into the femur of the thigh, that's going to make the knee joint, okay? So when two bones come together, that's a joint articulation, okay? Bones are held together by ligaments, all right? Muscles are attached to bones via tendons. Cartilage is basically a lining of the joint, which is sort of connective tissue, but works more as buffering tissue, okay? So cartilage lines a joint, tendons connect muscles to bones, and ligaments connect bones to bones. So that's the area where things can kind of come apart a little bit, no pun intended, okay? So tendonitis is simply inflammation of the tendon that connects whatever muscle to that particular bone. So if you get patella tendonitis in your knee, that means that it's the tendon below the kneecap that is attaching the muscle of the anterior tibialis up into the patella, then that is going to cause inflammation of that area, and that is a tendonitis. Now, you can get tendonosis, which is a little bit more inflammation in there, a little bit more serious. But essentially, tendonitis and a pulled muscle are almost the same thing. So Tendonitis is a little bit more serious because tendon tissue is a little more dense and takes a little bit longer to heal. If we use averages, it's around, say, 4 weeks for that tendon to heal. But the muscle that it's attached to might heal if it's pulled in 2 weeks. But essentially, it's a pull. It's a pull of the tendon. So like a muscle is a muscle pull. You get a hamstring pull. You pulled your hamstring. What does that really mean? That means that you have slightly, mildly torn your hamstring. All right? That's what a hamstring pull is. Sometimes people brush off pulled muscles like it's nothing. They go, I just pulled my hamstring. It's like, okay, yeah, that should be very treatable. We just need to not aggravate it. We don't stretch it. Put on some heat and ice. Put on some compression. Let it heal. Don't run. Don't, do anything bursting or sprinting, and it should heal in a couple weeks. Correct. No big deal. But if you try to, say, work through a muscle pull, doing ballistic activities that really, cause explosion and things like that, you can rupture it all away. So sometimes I think people don't realize, because we call it a pull, what if you said, I have a hamstring tear? Then all of a sudden you'd go, oh, wow, I need to be careful. Well, you do. I mean, if you have a pulled muscle, it's a tear. It's just mildly torn, all right? So typically we use grades, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. So grade 1 is just very minor. You pulled it. You were running the first base in softball. You kind of came up a little lame. And you're like, oh, I pulled it, and it hurts, but you walk it off a little bit. It's not like it goes away completely, but it definitely, the pain starts to dissipate. The next day it's really sore, but then there on out it starts to heal. Grade 1, no big deal. Grade 2 is further. Sometimes you see blood. Sometimes you see bleeding in the joint. Sometimes you see bad bruising. That's a grade 2. Not good. Again, will heal. Leave it alone. Not completely ruptured. Grade 3 means you completely ruptured it. Not good. Came off the bone. People have done that with their biceps. They get Popeye arms, when the bicep tendon, bicep muscle, bicep belly basically ruptures, comes off the bone. So we don't want a minor pull to turn into that. And that could be with a muscle or a tendon. But back to the tendon, tendonitis. That's what it is. It's just all those things that I just described happen to the tendon, and it takes a little bit longer to heal. Sometimes grade 1 strains of the tendon can take so long because we really just don't let it rest. Things like tendonitis of the elbow, that can be golfer's elbow or tennis elbow. Lateral epicondylitis is what we call tennis elbow. It's on the outside of the elbow, outside of the forearm. It's where the attachment point is for the brachioradialis into the actual elbow joint on the medial side of the arm. So it takes forever. Why? Because you don't lay off of it. I mean, you even pick up a coffee cup and you're like, oh, I feel that a little bit. Right. So you're really not resting it. Okay. So that's all joint pain. We don't like that. So joint pain doesn't just stop when the exercise stops like burning does. Joint pain lingers, and it could be acute, which it means that at the time it's really bad. It's that guy running the first base, pulls his hammy, it's acute. He really can't walk on it without help, without crutches. That's acute. It could become chronic, like tennis elbow, where the damn thing just lingers. You play pickleball, you play tennis, and you're like, man, I just can't get this thing right. It's because you haven't taken total time off. Now, strength training and all that done correctly can help those areas. But if you're feeling it on a movement, like let's say you have tennis elbow, which is really common, most strength exercises don't cause any tennis elbow. Occasionally, we'll see it like on a pull-down machine or something like that. But oftentimes, it's more caused by tennis. It's caused by golf, caused by softball, caused by ballistic activities. Most pulls and injuries are caused by ballistic activities, meaning things that happen suddenly, sharp, quick. That's usually how we pull muscles. We do something very, very sudden. And again, when I say pull muscle, it's the same thing. Tendonitis is a pulled tendon, a slightly torn tendon. But strength training can occasionally exasperate things. I don't want to make you paranoid because too many people are paranoid of the gym anyway, when in reality, it's the best thing most people can do to keep their joints in shape. Like I rarely pull muscles because I keep all of my joints strong by keeping the muscles strong the best I can. And I warm up properly. All right. I probably just jinxed myself and I'll step out and pull a hammy later, but I hope not. All right. So the bottom line is with that, when we have joint pain of any kind, it doesn't stop when we stop the exercise. It stays with us. If you press on the area, palpate it, fancy name for press, right? Then it hurts a little bit when you palpate it, then you know that's more of a pull or pain in the joint. If you have joint pain when you walk in your knee and your ankle or your hip, I mean, obviously it's there. So if you go to do your strength training exercise and you notice it makes it worse or you feel pain in the joint, that's something we don't work through, okay? So the good is lactic acid to burn. Work through it, people. Please work through it. The burn is your friend. The bad is joint pain, which again could be ligamentous, could be tendon, could be muscle close to the tendon, and we don't work through it, but we do work around it. I have to stress that. If you have tennis elbow, there's no reason why you can't do almost every other muscle group than perhaps biceps and lats. You can definitely do your legs. I laugh a little because it blows me away how like so many people want to get out of their workout sometimes. I'm like, man, so many people like love to work out and you want to get out of your workout. Like, you know, about 2 months ago now, I had hernia surgery, you know, and it was preventative. I finally needed to do it, and I finally did it. So I really couldn't train for about 5 weeks. Man, I wanted to so bad. Like I was texting a couple different doctor friends of mine, like kind of hoping to get like permission to do something that my surgeon basically told me not to do. You know, look, I never said I'm the smartest guy in the world when it comes to myself with this. I love it so much, you know, and they're all like, listen to your surgeon. I'm like, ugh. So like I would just do like 1,000,000 steps per day because I could, but I wasn't lifting weights. I wasn't running. I was missing it, you know. And then when you get people that are like, well, I have a little bit of tennis elbow going on. You know, my doc says I should rest. And I'm like, we can do lower body. I don't know. I'm like, come on, man. It's like, what are you doing? Like, all right, so that's enough of a rant on that. But we don't work through the pain in joint pain. We do work around it though. And I have to stress that it is good for you to work around it. Like, even when you're feeling like a hamstring, a calf or something, or your quad, typically biking on an exercise bike is going to be very helpful because it's going to increase circulation in that area. All right. Finally, the ugly. All right. The good, the bad, the ugly. The ugly is DOMS. Although it's really not ugly. I just had to stay with the theme, you know? It's, I guess, a little negative because you're sore, but that's what it is. It's muscle soreness, and it's called DOMS, D-O-M-S, delayed onset muscle soreness. And it's so crazy that when I had classes in exercise physiology, like the debates over what it is, it was like almost kind of laughable. I'm like, why are there people that are so wrapped up into like trying to prove their theories? As I already pointed out earlier in the podcast, there was the lactic acid theory. It's leftover lactic acid. It's inflammation, which is kind of partly true. It's heat. It's, just these crazy theories. And, you know, even today, they like don't completely sign off on what most of us know what it is, which is tiny little micro tears in the muscle. So it's kind of like a very low grade pull. That's what it is, because you have pulled your muscle fibers apart. So when you work out, your muscle fibers go through a concentric contraction, which is shortening, and an eccentric contraction, which is lengthening. They're contracting. So they do get slightly pulled apart. I mean, that's kind of the idea. So it's like tiny little micro tears, and then as your body is repairing itself, gets minutely inflamed, and that's what it is. That's what DOMS is, delayed onset muscle soreness. All right. So now you know what it is. Now, it's not a bad thing. Like sometimes people will say, and again, it's kind of the same crowd that doesn't want to work out when they have tennis elbow. It's kind of like the same crowd. And, if you're listening to this and I'm offending you, well, I don't know, maybe be offended, because it's like working out is a great thing. And being a little sore and having body aches here and there really isn't the end of the world for the benefits that you're going to get. But it is sort of the same crowd that says, I'm really sore from the other day's workout and I just don't think I should work out. Well, let me tell you, as a qualified exercise physiologist, that's nonsense. So research actually shows that when you have muscle soreness, you're actually going to recover quicker by working out again. All right. Now, when people do, though, complain a little bit to me, look, I'll admit sometimes I can be a little, passive aggressive. I mean, I don't think you stay in your field as long as I have without having some defense mechanisms, right? So, maybe a little bit of sarcasm and go, oh man, you're sore. Lucky for you, man. I love when I'm sore. And they look at me funny and I'm like, well, I'm kind of serious. But the reality is, it just is. It's not good. It's not bad. And it's really not ugly. It just is. But the studies show that when you are sore, number one, you haven't done any damage. You haven't done any damage. It's nothing serious. Can it be uncomfortable a little bit depending on where you're sore? Sure, absolutely. Like there are certain areas I don't mind being sore, and there's certain areas I'm like, I'm stiff. So yeah, it could be a little uncomfortable for sure. But the studies show that if we work out, we're actually going to alleviate some of that soreness by simply improving our circulation, by getting the blood moving. It just helps bring back the healing properties that we need. All right. So the other thing that we do have to understand with DOMS is that it's also not a great thing either. So in other words, on the flip side of that, people will sometimes say, I don't know if I had a very good workout because I'm not sore, or that was a great workout because I'm sore. Well, that's not really true either. I mean, soreness usually just comes from not doing a certain movement for a while and your body's adjusting to it. So you don't have to be sore to have a great workout, and you don't have to avoid the next workout because you're sore. So it kind of just is. Now, research shows that we're going to get our most DOMS, or most soreness, from eccentric contractions. So anything where there is a longer negative stroke or a more aggressive negative stroke. Like, for example, you're doing dumbbell flies and you're really accentuating the negative on the way down, and you're going through full range of motion. You're going really slow on the way down. You're holding perfect form. You're really stretching those muscles. As you're lengthening those muscles, most likely your pecs are going to be pretty darn sore. Runners experience a lot when they do races where there's a lot of downhills, because downhill running is an eccentric contraction. You're landing in the lengthened position, so you're going to be sore. Most runners will tell you that once they're fatigued, they can handle the uphills far more than the downhills. So you're going to get sore from eccentric contractions. You're going to get sore if you haven't done something for a while. Soreness is not necessarily a good thing, and it's not a bad thing. It just is. If you don't like it, I mean, look, there's ways you can like soak afterwards and things like that. But the best thing to do is just get to your next workout whenever that is, and that is going to help. Okay? The good, the bad, and the ugly. I hope I cleared up where pain comes from in a workout. All right. Speaking of the good, the bad, and the ugly, let me talk to you a little bit about Jeff and Zach Hawk, the owners of Overhead Door of Daytona Beach. All right. They are good. They're never bad, and they're certainly not ugly. All right. They own the best garage door company, bar none. And the service is just lights out. I mean, Zach, the son, will do anything for you. I mean, so this morning we're at the gym and I'm redecorating, so to say. I'm kind of redoing the floor plan a little bit. You're going to see some new toys coming in, which I think is pretty cool. But anyway, so I got rid of one of my pull downs because I kind of have a couple, and I sold it to a client. And the client was having a hard time lifting this 250-pound pull down. Gee, I wonder why. Very heavy. But anyway, I'm helping him, and Zach's there. I said, Zach, can you give us a hand? Zach goes over, picks it up, helps us lift in the truck. We're not going to be able to get it up there without his help for sure. But that, here's the point. Zach always helps, and he helps in the company too. Every time that I have referred somebody to Overhead Door, they'll say, oh, Zach showed up and got me in my house. My garage door was stuck. I said, he came himself? Yeah. So, man, you can't beat it. You need good people in your corner. And my sponsors, the Gildan Group and Overhead Door, are the best, and I vouch for them. So please utilize their services if you need them. All right? Until next time, be Max Fit and be Maxwell.